A man demanded I move my car from a public parking spot, saying, "I always park here, so it's mine." When I refused, he kicked my bumper, screaming, "I'll have you towed." Moments later, a cop walked up and ticketed him instead. His jaw dropped as the officer said, "Sir, this spot isn't reserved. But now you owe $500 for property damage." I had just wrapped up a grueling day at work and was eager to get home, kick off my shoes, and unwind. Navigating the congested streets of Los Angeles during rush hour is always a test of patience, but I finally made it to the public parking lot near my apartment complex. To my relief, there was an open spot close to the entrance, a rare find at this hour. I steered my car into the space, turned off the engine, and began gathering my belongings, already envisioning the comfort of my living room. As I reached for my bag on the passenger seat, a sharp voice cut through the evening air. "Hey, you're in my spot." Startled, I turned to see a middle-aged man with a stocky build and a face flushed with anger approaching my car. He was dressed in a wrinkled button-down shirt and khaki pants, and his expression was a mix of disbelief and fury. Confused, I rolled down my window and said, "I'm sorry, but this is a public parking lot. There aren't any assigned spots." "I always park here," he snapped, his eyes narrowing. "So it's mine." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. "Sir, I understand you prefer this spot, but it's available to anyone." I was fortunate to find it open. His face turned a deeper shade of red, and his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "Move your car now, or I'll have you towed." I felt a surge of irritation but maintained a calm tone. "With all due respect, you don't have the authority to tow my vehicle from a public lot." Without warning, he took a step forward and delivered a swift kick to my car's front bumper. The sound of the impact echoed through the lot, and I felt my heart rate spike. "I'll make sure you regret this," he spat, his eyes blazing with rage. Before I could respond, a firm voice interrupted the escalating confrontation. "Is there a problem here?" We both turned to see a uniformed police officer approaching us. He was tall and authoritative, with a no-nonsense demeanor that immediately commanded attention. The man's demeanor shifted slightly, but his anger remained evident. He pointed a finger at me and said, "This person stole my parking spot and is refusing to move." The officer turned his gaze to me. "Sir, is this true?" I shook my head, choosing my words carefully. "Officer, I parked in this spot because it was open. This is a public parking lot with no reserved spaces." This gentleman approached me, claiming it was his spot, and when I declined to move, he kicked my car. The officer's eyes narrowed as he processed the information. He turned back to the man and said, "Sir, this parking lot doesn't have assigned spots. However, damaging someone's vehicle is a serious offense." The man's eyes widened in shock. But it's my spot. I've been parking here for years." "That doesn't grant you ownership," the officer replied firmly. "I'm issuing you a citation for property damage. You'll need to pay a $500 fine." The man was speechless, his jaw hanging open as the officer wrote the ticket. He accepted it reluctantly, glaring at me before turning on his heel and walking away, muttering under his breath. I thanked the officer for his assistance and stepped out of my car to inspect the damage. The dent on my bumper was noticeable, and I felt a pang of frustration. The officer noticed my concern and said, "You can file a report with your insurance company to cover the repair costs. Make sure to document everything." I nodded, appreciating his guidance. "Thank you, officer. I will." Over the next few days, I noticed the man avoiding me in the parking lot. He no longer confronted others over parking spots, likely deterred by the hefty fine and legal warning. This experience taught me the importance of standing my ground when I'm in the right and the value of remaining calm in confrontational situations. Public spaces are meant for everyone's use, and no one has the right to claim them as their own through intimidation or aggression. The next morning, I saw him again. He was sitting in his car a few spaces down, arms crossed, eyes locked on me like he was waiting. I parked in a different spot this time, intentionally, because I didn't want another scene. I wasn't scared, just tired of the drama. But that didn't stop him from rolling his window down as I passed by. "This isn't over," he muttered. I paused for a second. You should let it go. He smirked. You embarrassed me. You'll regret it. I didn't reply. I just walked off. I figured he was blowing steam. People say dumb things when their pride's bruised. That evening, my car alarm went off. I ran outside in time to see a dark figure darting between the other parked cars. My passenger side mirror was smashed clean off, hanging by a wire. My stomach dropped. I knew who it was. I had no proof, but I knew. I called the cops again. They showed up, took a report, and said they'd look into security footage from the nearby liquor store, which had a camera facing part of the lot. I knew they had bigger things to worry about, but the officer assured me they'd review it and follow up. I was pissed, but I still tried to be rational. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was random. Still, that feeling of being targeted wouldn't go away. 3 days later, a small dent appeared on the hood. No note. No explanation. I hadn't even heard anything overnight. I just walked out in the morning and there it was. Another hit. That's when I decided to install a dashcam. One with a parking mode that records even when the car's off. If he wanted to play dirty, I'd give him enough rope to hang himself. The camera arrived, and I installed it the same night. The next morning, I parked in my usual spot, yes, the one he originally claimed as his. Petty, maybe, but I was tired of being intimidated. That night, the camera caught him. Clear as day, or rather, night. Around 2:14 a.m., he walked up to my car, looked around, and started scraping my paint with something sharp. A key, maybe? Slow, deliberate strokes. For long lines along the driver's side. I took the footage to the police the next morning. The officer who had written the first ticket looked over the footage with a quiet sort of satisfaction. This is enough for a criminal mischief charge, he said. You want to press charges? Absolutely. They picked him up that evening. He was smug at first. Claimed it wasn't him. Until they showed him the footage. His face changed instantly. No more smirk. No more attitude. He looked like someone who'd just realized he'd screwed up beyond repair. He was released pending court, but the damage was done. Word spread around the complex. People started whispering about how he'd been harassing others too, cutting them off in the lot, yelling at folks for stealing spots. One woman even said he'd threatened her teenage son for parking too close to his truck. It all started unraveling for him. The landlord sent out a warning notice about parking lot harassment, citing multiple complaints and confirmed incidents. Everyone knew who it was about. Then, a week before the court date, I got home from work and noticed something strange. My tires looked low. I bent down. Yep, slashed. All four. I stared at them for a solid minute, heart pounding in my ears. I wanted to scream. I pulled out my phone, checked the dashcam. I'd parked facing out this time, which meant the camera had a full view of anyone approaching the front. I fast-forwarded through the footage, and there it was again, 2:07 a.m. He crouched down beside each tire, quick and practiced. I drove on the rims, very slowly, to the gas station nearby and aired up just enough to make it to the tire shop the next morning. Cost me over $600. I handed that second batch of footage over to the police. This time, they weren't just calm. They were mad. This is more than mischief now, the officer said. This is stalking and destruction of property. He's not just facing fines anymore. I didn't hear much for the next few days. But I kept parking in that same spot. One evening, I was taking groceries from my car when I saw a different neighbor, someone I barely knew, walking up the path. She looked around nervously before whispering to me, "He's been watching your apartment from his window." I stopped mid-step. What? He sits in the dark, lights off. I can see him from my place. I think he's planning something. That night, I didn't sleep much. Every sound outside felt louder. Every shadow moved. I started noticing things. My door mat slightly shifted. A scratch on the wall near my door. Subtle things. Maybe I was being paranoid, or maybe he was escalating in ways I couldn't catch on camera. I ordered indoor cams, too. Set one up pointing at the door, another by the living room window. I told myself it was just in case. But I knew why I really did it. The next morning, a note was slid under my door. Should have just moved your car. No name. Just that one sentence, scribbled in messy handwriting on a torn piece of paper. My stomach twisted. This wasn't about a parking spot anymore. This was personal. And I wasn't letting it go. I brought that note to the police. The same officer who'd been helping me looked it over, sighed, and said, "We can't do much with this unless we catch him leaving it. But we'll make a report." It wasn't what I wanted to hear, but I understood. Without fingerprints or direct proof, it was just a creepy note. Still, it was enough for them to file an official report and update the case. I felt like I was building a wall, brick by brick. If he slipped up again, the consequences would be heavier. A few days passed without incident. I kept my cameras on, stayed alert, and tried to go about my life. Maybe he finally realized it wasn't worth it. Then my mailbox was ripped off the wall. I came home from work and found it on the ground, bent and dented. Mail scattered across the sidewalk. A few opened envelopes. One of them had my paycheck stub. He'd gone through my personal information. I was furious. This wasn't just harassment anymore. This was crossing into something deeper, more invasive. I called the police again. They took photos, filed another report. Now they were talking about a pattern of behavior. A probable escalation. "He's getting bold," the officer said. "You need to be careful. Don't engage with him directly." I nodded. I was way past trying to reason with this guy. But then something strange happened. One of the maintenance guys, Carlos, quiet guy, always wore headphones, caught me on my way out to work one morning. He looked around like he didn't want anyone to hear, then said, "You should check your tires again today." "What?" "Just check," he said, and walked off. I went straight to the car. My tires looked fine. I didn't see anything obvious. But something about the way he said it stuck with me, so I crouched down and ran my hand around the inside of the passenger side front tire. I found a screw. It was wedged in at a weird angle, clearly placed, not picked up from the road. It hadn't punctured all the way through yet, but it was only a matter of time. If I had taken the freeway that morning, it could have blown out at 70 miles per hour. My hands were shaking when I pulled the screw out and put it in a Ziploc bag. Another piece of evidence. Another line crossed. This time, when I went to the police, I also went to the landlord. I showed them the footage from the mailbox damage and the screw. I said, clearly and calmly, if he's not evicted soon, someone's going to get hurt. The landlord didn't say much. Just nodded and said he'd look into his lease agreement. I could tell they were worried about legal pushback, but the pattern of complaints was growing. And then, 2 days later, Carlos knocked on my door. He looked nervous, real jumpy. "I gotta tell you something," he said. I didn't say anything before because I didn't want to get involved, but I think he's been paying someone. "Paying who?" "Some guy, doesn't live here. Shows up late, like past midnight. I've seen them talking in the back lot, and the guy always leaves around 3 a.m. carrying tools." My stomach dropped. "You think he's paying him to mess with me?" Carlos shrugged, like he didn't want to fully say it. "I think he's trying to make it look like it's not him. But the guy's not subtle. And last night? I saw him messing around by your apartment door. Then he took off." I checked my door cam. Around 2:57 a.m., someone in a hoodie and mask hovered near the frame for a solid minute, then left. No attempt to break in, but it was unsettling. He knew about the camera. That much was obvious. I printed out the image, made a copy for the police and another for the landlord. I told them both the same thing. He's outsourcing it now. This is beyond petty revenge. He's hiring people to intimidate me. The police started taking it more seriously. They mentioned they'd begin surveillance if it escalated again. They even advised me to stay somewhere else for a few days, just in case. I didn't. I wasn't going to let him chase me out. The next night, around 1:15 a.m., I heard a strange thump outside. I checked the window. Nothing. But the morning after, my apartment door had deep scratches on it. Long, deliberate gouges like someone had dragged a sharp object across it again and again. Another message. Another threat. And then the final straw came in a way I didn't expect. I received a letter in the mail, not dropped off, but actually mailed to me, with a stamp and everything. No return address. Inside was a single printed photo. It was me, standing on my balcony, talking on my phone. From the angle, it was clear the photo was taken from the opposite building. He was watching me. I brought it to the police immediately. They took it very seriously this time. Stalking, intimidation, destruction of property, it was all building into something serious. I think we're getting a warrant, the officer told me. This is no longer minor. This is criminal harassment, and we may need to search his apartment. Meanwhile, the landlord finally posted a notice. He was being evicted in 30 days. But honestly, I didn't know if I could wait that long. The way things were going, I was starting to feel like I needed to be 2 steps ahead at all times. Because this wasn't about a parking spot anymore. This guy wanted control. And now he was losing it. 3 nights after the photo incident, everything came crashing down. It was late. I was half asleep on the couch with the TV still flickering in the background. A loud banging on my door shot me upright. Not knocking, banging. Heavy, urgent. I jumped up, grabbed my phone, and peeked through the peephole. It was him. The man who started all this over a parking spot. He looked unhinged. Wild eyes sweaty, fists clenched. He wasn't shouting, just standing there and knocking in hard, short bursts like a ticking bomb. I didn't open the door. I dialed 911, kept my voice low, told them everything. The dispatcher stayed on the line with me. But then, his voice. "You think you're better than me?" he said through the door. His tone was low, simmering. "You think you can ruin my life and just go back to watching TV like nothing happened?" My heart raced. I backed away from the door slowly. "I lost my job," he continued, voice rising now. "You think I didn't see what you did? Showing that video to the landlord, calling the cops. You set me up. You did that to yourself," I shouted back without thinking. Silence. Then, he kicked the door. Hard. A deep thud that rattled the frame. "I've lived here for 10 years, he roared. "People respected me. And now? I'm the crazy guy? Over AF ****ing parking spot." That's when the neighbors started peeking out. Doors creaked open. Lights flicked on. I heard someone yell, "What's going on?" The old lady across the hall, Mrs. Robbins, opened her door just a crack. "Jerry," she called out. "What are you doing?" He turned toward her. "Stay out of this, Doris." "No," she said, stepping out a little more. "You're scaring everyone. You need to go home." That's when he cracked. He spun around, red-faced, arms flailing. "I was respected," he shouted. "Now everyone looks at me like I'm nothing. Because of him." The hallway went quiet. Dead quiet. "I just wanted my spot," he muttered. "It's not about the damn parking anymore." He made me feel like I don't belong in my own home. The police showed up seconds later. Sirens. Lights bouncing off the hallway walls. Officers came in fast. He didn't fight. Just dropped to his knees right there in front of my door. "I don't know who I am anymore," he whispered as they cuffed him. Neighbors watched in stunned silence. Some shook their heads. One guy clapped once, then awkwardly stopped. Nobody really knew what to do. The cops took him away. One officer stayed back to talk to me. "Are you okay?" I nodded, even though I didn't know how to answer. "He's going to get evaluated," the officer said. This wasn't just harassment. He snapped. They left. Quiet returned to the building. Slowly, doors closed. Lights dimmed. Mrs. Robbins came over and patted my shoulder. "You didn't deserve any of that, honey," she said. "None of it." "Thanks," I said softly. But I felt hollow. The next few days felt surreal. His apartment was empty, locked up with a sheriff's notice on the door. I walked by it every day, unable to stop glancing at it. People started talking. Neighbors who'd never said more than "hi" to me before were suddenly chatty. They shared their own stories. Turns out he'd harassed others too, accused someone of stealing his trash can, yelled at a teenager for skateboarding near his truck, glared at anyone who parked too close. Carlos told me he was a lonely man. Angry at the world. "You just became the focus." I wanted to feel relieved. But mostly, I felt weird. Heavy. This guy had terrorized me for weeks. He damaged my car, stalked me, sent a stranger to scare me, stood outside my door like he was ready to explode. But when he finally did break, it wasn't satisfying. It was sad. I replayed his words over and over. You made me feel like I don't belong. Was he blaming me for the unraveling he started? Or was he admitting he had already been unraveling and I just exposed it? I don't know. I never saw him again. I heard he was taken for a psychological evaluation and later moved in with his sister somewhere in Riverside. No charges stuck fully. He pled out on misdemeanor vandalism and harassment. But he was gone. That was enough. I kept the dash cam. And the security cams. I park where I want now, but part of me still checks over my shoulder. The mailbox got fixed. The scratch on my door is still there. I haven't painted over it yet. I kind of keep it as a reminder. Conflict doesn't always end clean. Sometimes the win leaves you feeling a little dirty. Like maybe justice and peace aren't the same thing. I don't regret standing my ground. But I do wonder, what if I had just moved my car that day? Would it have saved him? Or just delayed the breakdown? I'll never know. But I do know this. Control is a dangerous illusion. And sometimes, the quiet people are the ones holding in the loudest storms.